What's up? So we're doing some agency owner weekly Q&A with you fine folks here, and got some good questions for you guys this week. It's going to be a fun little journey, and I finally bit the bullet. I know enough of you guys have told me this that I need to get a better microphone, but as you can tell, I am as low tech as they come. So firstly, a couple announcements. We're running an offer right now, and one of the things I wanted to do for 2021 is like literally make it easier for you guys to succeed than ever humanly possible and do a lot of the legwork for you. Now, I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but it's very, very true. If you can't sell your offer or your services in 1 to 3 sentences, then adding to that, like in terms of proposals and sales calls and Facebook ads and networking and all that stuff, is not going to make it work any better. And so what I really want to help you guys do is really dial in your offer and then your systems and your processes so that your offer gets delivered like clockwork to the right people. And so we're putting together all the processes for you, as well as even having teams of virtual assistants. And if you're on a cash flow budget, which I know a lot of you guys are because 2020 was crazy, we even have teams of people that work straight commission. So you don't even have to like pay out of pocket until you've made sales. And I've set up the program so that it's very, 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 very affordable, more than I would do normally. But I honestly, I just really love working with you guys. You guys are the coolest motherfuckers on the planet. I know you guys can relate to this. Probably 90% of people in your life have no idea what you do. Like I've been doing this since 2007. My family still has no fucking clue what I do. So I'm sure you guys are there, at least a few of you guys. So it's really nice when we get to mastermind together and solve problems. So that's what we're setting up. So you get to use our process. You just hand over the script to our VA, and all you got to do is come up with the 1 to 3 sentences, which we help you create. And that's it. Appointments show up. So we're obviously in the beta phase. I wouldn't say we have it like 100% dialed in, but it's not my first rodeo. I've done this a few times in my own agency and other people. So it's not going to take us a long time either, and the price will go up after that. So if you're interested, give me a shout out. Otherwise, let's get into the questions. Mornay, when first starting out, can you dig into multiple niches, and at what stage do you focus only on one niche? If you're like brand new, like meaning you've never had a client before, then I would suggest actually going into multiple niches, which is counterintuitive to how most people say it. But the reason is you won't really know if you like a niche or not, or if you can help them without like at least having some real life experience. Like you can't think your way into a niche and solve all the problems before you get in it. Like you have to like kind of get into the trenches. And so what I would suggest is just take the work that shows up to you in the beginning if you're very, very first starting out. But once you get going, if you don't narrow your scope of work, it's actually going to be an enemy to progress. And we'll talk about that because there's some other questions coming up. But yeah, if you've literally never had a client before, just take the work that comes up and start figuring out who you like to work with and why. But once you get going, you definitely got to pick a niche. I would say you shouldn't even have multiple niches once you've been going until you're like a stage 4, stage 5 agency where you've totally saturated one niche. So like in the lawyer space, we've reached points where like we just couldn't advertise to them anymore, right? Like everybody had seen our ads. So that's when we started going after like chiropractors and some dentists and things like that. Ronaldo, we're doing paid 3-day trials and wondering if you think we should continue as we scale. We've closed 3 clients from them so far, but wondering if we switch over to intro to demo calls instead. Ronaldo, it really depends on how strong your case studies are. Like if you can like show people, here's what we've done, blah, blah, blah. See, what you're offering right now is kind of what I would call a first date, a little 3-day trial they get to try before they buy. It's good that you're doing paid trials because that makes a big difference. Having said that, if you've got enough proof and you want to go straight to marriage, you can do that. So it's really up to you. But I'll tell you the real benefit actually to doing the 3-day trials is not what people think it is, that it's easier to get them to say yes. It's easier for you to screen for the pain in the ass clients that are going to be hard to help. So that would be my number one reason for continuing the 3-day trial. But it's really up to you and what your goals are doing. You can definitely switch. If you got the case studies, you only need one really good, strong case study to be able to sell the same service over and over and over again. So it's really up to you where you want to go with that. Harry says, what are seven-figure agency owner daily habits or habits to get there? The first thing to outsource when you make a bit more cash, apart from niche, how else can you stand out? So those are three different questions, Harry. Daily habits, seven-figure agency. First are obviously like working on your mindset and just believing in yourself. Like I would say everybody I know that has like a seven-figure or more, like not just agency, but business in general, has some kind of either morning or evening ritual or both. So the first thing to do is just like get you in the right state. A lot of people don't know this about me, but like I would say 9 out of 10 days I wake up tired, unmotivated, and so like I have to like condition myself to do that over and over. So it gets easier each time you do it, but it's a necessary part of it. The other thing I would say is the other daily habit is identifying what the biggest, most important thing is and working on that relentlessly. So there's a question from, if you've ever read The One Thing by Gary Keller. Gary Keller created one of the biggest real estate agencies in the world. It's called Keller Williams. It's not as big as Remax, but I think they're number 2. And the whole point of the book is this one question where he says, what is the single most important thing that I can work on right now such that by doing it would make everything else easier or unnecessary? And I would say that's the number one question, is like identifying the biggest, most important roadblock and working at it systematically, because really growing a business is problem solving. Like people think it's something else, like I'm going to get the perfect Facebook ad, but it never goes every step completely smoothly. So that's the biggest thing, is identifying the most important problem that's going to move the needle and working at it. And often, like I said, it's a mindset thing, because we often know what it is and avoid it. When I first started, I would make a list of like 20 things to do, and then I would start on 20, the least important thing, because I would like, oh, I need to build up some momentum before I work at the most important thing. And now I can have a list of 20 things and only do number 1, the most important thing, and not get done the other 19, and be more productive than when I used to do a whole bunch of things. So that's one thing that'll get you to 7 figures, is identifying the big needle mover and working on it. The first thing to outsource when you make a bit more cash, this is my 2 cents, and it's not a one-size-fits-all answer, but I would say get rid of everything you fucking hate doing. For real. Like is realizing that there's people who love the work that you hate. So the sooner you can get the stuff that's just not fun for you, you'll be in your zone of genius. And it's a little bit different for everybody. So I like hate admin and tech stuff. So like for me, I can't get that shit off my plate fast enough. I love just doing my stuff with just like a notepad. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a couple of notepads. That's how I do most of my work. And it wasn't until actually I met a coach, mentor of mine, who built 2 8-figure agencies. And one of the things that he did is he would just mail he would literally fax in a piece of paper that he had written on the golf course to his staff and say, here's what I want us to get done. And often he would fax it upside down. And I had no idea you could actually run an agency like that until I saw it done firsthand, but that's how he actually did it. And then last, apart from niche, how else can you stand out? A lot of times people think, Harry, that a niche is I work for dentists, I work for lawyers, or if you're outside of brick and mortar, I work for e-com. That is one way. I have a document if you'd like access to it. It's called the Niche Selection Tool, and anyone else who wants this, you can have it. But a niche is not just your vertical. It can also be like your delivery. Like, so if you do it through webinar or YouTube ads or Instagram or books, all of those can be a niche. I'm the webinar guy. I'm the YouTube girl. I'm the Instagram person. I'm the help you get clients through books. This is one thing people don't think about. It can also be an affinity you share. So I work with Christian entrepreneurs. I work with online female coaches. I help cannabis businesses or whatever, right? So something you guys have in common can be the reason. And that's actually more about them than it is about you. The results you create, that can be something. It can be like, I saw a guy who's like, hey, I help mortgage brokers with 2 million in deals get to 10 million in deals. Or I've created 8 webinars that generated over 100,000, or I grew a 16 million a year carpet cleaning business. Those are real examples, by the way. They're not like make believe. It can also be just like a little micro problem, like I help coaches stop hearing I need to think about it on the phone, or I help you get your tracking codes installed, or I help you get Infusionsoft set up, or I help you answer the phone better. Those are all like micro niches. So those are a couple of ways you can like do something different than what everybody else is doing, and they're not just dependent on like your niche, because a niche is more broad than that. So like I said, if you want that document, I'm happy to share that with you or anybody else who wants it, because That, and then obviously the other way to stand out is your offer. I've beaten this thing to death if you've listened to me at all, but it is the thing that makes it go. If your offer is hard to sell, you're going to be treading water and swimming upstream. Conrad, best way to scale to consistent 15K weeks. I'll tell you. Oh, and Steve, next question, best way to scale. So I'm going to group these together because they're kind of the same question. Scale, I guess, is a different term for different people. I wouldn't consider scale like 15K weeks, although it's all relative to what you're trying to do. But here's the thing, okay? I'll tell you what stops most people from scaling. And if you eliminate the things that stop people from scaling, it's actually way easier to scale than you realize. I'll tell you the number one thing that stops people from scaling is they're doing too much custom work. So I made this mistake when I first got started in my my agency. We were doing SEO for plastic surgeons in my first agency, and when we were doing that, it was actually like we were able to reuse the same articles and same pieces and rewrite them. So it was like kind of doing the same thing over and over. And then somebody one day came along and said, "Can you do AdWords?" And we said, "Sure." And then they said, "Can you do a web design?" And we said, "Sure." And we started doing all these things. And the more and more moving pieces I had, that was the enemy to scale. So I talked to a guy, like, I don't know, a couple months ago that comes to mind. His name's Mohammed. And Mohammed had 8 SEO clients or 7 SEO clients or something like that he was managing himself. And he was doing something different. So he's got like a plumber in one and, a e-commerce in another. And he's got a dentist over here and he's got a lawyer down here. And he wanted to scale past that, but he was like, I'm working 80 hours a week, can barely keep up with the workload, but I want to make more money. And it isn't until he narrows his focus and thinks about doing less. So I'll give you an example. We're doing a little bit right now in our agency, in one of my agencies anyway, for motorcycle cases for injury lawyers. And for every client, they get the same landing page, they get the same book, they get the same follow-up sequence, they get the same ads, they get the same retargeting. So that's like 5 moving pieces, but that's it. Like I don't reinvent the wheel and do custom work for everybody. So especially web designers, you guys are like the guiltiest of like trying to reinvent the wheel with every client. Is when you think about how can I build a system that can be reused, because the asset is the process that got the result. It's like if you got a phone calls for a plumber in Frog Balls, Arkansas, there's only 3,000 other counties in the United States, and that's not even like worldwide, where you could use that same ad, same landing page, same everything, and make it work. But for some reason, we think our value is reinventing the wheel. So that's the biggest thing that'll stop you from scaling, is like dabbling in too much shit and then like being custom, and then you can't. And the second thing, which leads into that, is processes and systems. Is you need to be able to have it step by step, step 1, step 2, step 3, so that when you bring in staff members or virtual assistants or however you get it done, that it's very easy for them to execute it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I heard one agency owner that was a mentor of mine that his people joked, you even have a process to go to the bathroom. Kind of a joke, but kind of not. That's how you want to think about your thing, is like McDonaldizing it so that it's step by step and it's formulaic, and you can't do that if you have too much custom work. So those are the 2 things that make it a whole lot easier to scale, is less focus, but targeted focus, and then reusing those assets and then systematizing it so that you can just bring in people. And then that's when you can actually have like a 7-figure agency and be on the beach and know it's going well when you're on the beach. Rahul, when and where to use a VSL and how to drive traffic to it. VSL, for those who don't know the term, is video sales letter. Paid, organic, thank you webinar, DM, etc. Who to hire next, vague, but what to do. VA versus local. What is outsourced versus overseas local. Sales, setters, scrapers, cold outreach. SOPs, what you must have at a minimum. Okay, so there's a couple of questions in there. Right, well, let's start with the beginning. When and where to use a VSL and how to drive traffic to it. We actually do most of our stuff with a VSL, even though I don't call it a VSL because it's not a formal, well-produced VSL. I call it a master plan video. And I'll tell you that one of the biggest reasons people struggle with converting their things is they want to make their processes sound cool instead of just telling people how they work. So I'll give you an example. A lot of times people hear proprietary secret method and custom blah, 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 and super secret sauce and new technique. And what happens is it sounds cool, but at the end of the day, it leaves people confused for how you're actually going to get them the result. And so they don't call you and they don't take you up on that business. So The key with the master plan videos is it's got to lay out what the result is that you're going to get for people and how you're going to actually do that and like what they can expect. So that's really our three-pronged approach is like show them the result, show them how you're going to get the result, and then lay out the expectations if they want to move forward for what that would look like. And you really don't need to do a lot more than that. We're actually closing people cold strangers with a little 5-minute VSL, if you will. And we're using it everywhere, so you can use it everywhere. And this is how we like pre-screen people, because this is my personal take. I don't want to get on the phone with somebody who's like going to be work and not going to close and all those things. So I'm like, I don't want to get on the phone to chase sales. So we use it as a pre-screening tool. You got to watch the 5-minute video, and if the video makes sense, then we'll jump on the phone and clear up the last-minute questions. But I want the video to do the selling. I don't want to chase people. So that's how we're using it. And obviously, there's more than one way to use a VSL, so I'm not saying that's the only way. Who to hire next? Vague, but what to do? Virtual assistant versus local. What is outsourced versus... Again, this comes back to the earlier thing. It depends on how simplified your processes are and how you've got it organized and how big your... If you got big scope, then you need superstars all the time. I love having superstars on my team, and I'm certainly encourage you to have those. But you want a team, like when you think about how McDonald's runs without superstars. They do occasionally have superstars, by the way, but they don't need it because the Big Mac they've just got it down to an art and a science. So that's kind of what you want to do. So what I say is depends on what your agency does. If you do SEO, the two things that I would keep local are proofreading, like English editors, and you can find people in college who do this really, really cheap if you're on a budget. And your sales. I would not outsource my sales to like a third world country because it works better when it's somebody that understands them and their culture better. As far as that though, you can outsource literally everything else to some place third world. And SOPs, what you must have at a minimum, depending on how big you want to build your agency, there's 3 kinds of SOPs you need. How do you get clients, right? Like you need an SOP for that. How do you deliver what you deliver for clients? And if you have a staff, how do you like hire and onboard? Those 3 things, if I would say cover most agencies. If you have your processes down for getting people, delivering, and hiring new staff, those 3 things can take you to like 8-figure agency and beyond. Peter, a team of 5 ad managers and 1 operations manager full-time. Each ad manager handles 10 clients while the ops manager oversees all 50 clients in total, each paying $1,500 a month. Monthly revenue is $75K. Ad manager and ops get paid $3,500 per month each. That's $21,000 spent on monthly payroll. You're left with $54,000. How do you scale to $100K a month without selling courses or coaching programs and hiring more people? So Peter, we talked about this privately and you kind of inspired some of the answers to the other one. But as we mentioned, those 2 big things, if you're doing custom work for everybody, which I know you are because we had that kind of conversation, that's what's going to stop you from scaling. And it's counterintuitive because you think I want more clients, more business, more bigger. But what ends up happening is if everything's custom, it's a fucking nightmare to manage at the 100K level because there's just so many pieces that get dropped. But it's very different like if you have an agency that's like smaller in scope like ours where, and I've seen this like where somebody does the same kind of thing for chiropractors and they've got a couple $100,000 a month coming in. It's like 1 ad, 1 landing page, 1 niche, 1 client, and it's like just a simplified thing. That is way easier to scale. And then once you like tap that out as far as you can take it, you might want to add like a second kind of thing like that or a third. But only when you've reached the point of saturation where you can't really sell that much more of it. But until then, you're probably just doing too much. So the thing I would tell you is like your clients aren't created equal now. Which are the really good ones and which are the really shit ones? And how can we reuse what we're already doing for the really good ones other places? Because if you got something working for a plastic surgeon in Georgia, you got 49 other states at a minimum that you can use that in. So less but better will take you a lot further. And what you'll find too is, by the way, you can probably raise that price from $1,500 a month if you're doing something that's more valuable. Like I said, not all clients are created equal. So look at those best people, and then once you've trimmed the fat, that's when you want to like build your processes. Kishan, I run PPC for my business and getting 10 to 12% click-through rate. Is it good or bad? There is an asterisk that goes on this. I would say those are really good numbers, by the way, in general. But there's a hidden metric in all of this that most people don't think about it, and it's like, are the right people clicking on the ad? So is this translating to sales and the people we want, and are we closing? I see this all the time, and especially in social, is like somebody will have a post that has 100 or 1,000 likes and no sales, no interest, no anything. And I have all the time where I have a post where nobody comments or I get like one like or whatever, but I'll make $1,000 from it. If you ask me whether I'd rather have $1,000 or 1,000 likes, I'll take the $1,000 every time. So just make sure you're measuring the right thing, because click-through rate in and of itself doesn't tell the whole story. Are the right people clicking? Are they translating into the sales you want? Does it fit into your overall processes? Are you turning them into long-term customers? If you're doing that, then you're crushing it with those numbers. If you're not, then you want to rethink and make sure you're getting the right people. Jaira, how does anybody know why Facebook is banning my account? I've read it through its ad policy. Sorry, this is on a couple of lines. And my ad, and I didn't violate any of their policies, had requested for review. Facebook replied that it didn't comply. Facebook's a little bit crazy right now, Jaira. Like I see your post 100 times a day. There's somebody getting kicked off of Facebook. So there's 3 ways to deal with it. I'll give you the shortest term. We have a script that's relatively good for getting your account back. There's no guarantees because Facebook's a little bit crazy and I don't control Facebook, but the script works. So if you want a copy of that or anyone else, just shoot me a message. Happy to send you the script. Secondly is what you want to be doing with Facebook, and this is really, really key, or any advertising platform, is converting it into traffic you control, which is your own list, your own group, your own community, places where you have that long term, so that nobody can turn you off like that. That's the worst thing that can ever happen, is if you're 100% dependent on Facebook, you put all your eggs in that basket. I learned this years ago when I watched people lose an SEO ranking and just like would lose $1 million business overnight because they lost a ranking. And I mean $1 million per month. I actually remember one that lost like that. And I've also seen it with AdWords where people get the account banned. So you never want to like put 100% of your eggs in your basket. So that would be my next piece, is long term, be looking at getting your offer right. Because what happens is people think way too much about the traffic platform and not enough on the person on the other side of the ad. If you understand the person on the other side of the ad, if you understand people, then what you'll find is that your offer will work not just on Facebook, but it'll work on YouTube, it'll work in real life, it'll work in a networking meeting, it'll work in a private message, it'll work on LinkedIn. So I experienced this like when we got our webinar crushing it on Facebook, the next thing we did is we took it to LinkedIn, and all we had to do on LinkedIn was just share more of the thing that was already working. We had an asset that was working. We didn't need to do something new because we knew it already spoke to these people. So you don't have to like reinvent the wheel. So that's the thing, is like be thinking about putting something together, an offer that's meaningful for the people that you can use more than one place. So I think that's it for questions. And if you guys are interested, by the way, in McDonaldizing your sales, where you get a really badass offer, and then we'll help you with our processes and the virtual assistants, which we already have ready to go. So you just have to like reach out to somebody, say, hey, can you put this offer out there for me and give it a try? And that's it. And you can be having appointments booked for you night and day. Then give me a holler. And that's all I got for you guys this week. I hope this was cool, and I hope the microphone quality is a little bit better.